So say a government looked at a piece of technology, still mostly living in trade show demos, and said we are putting 10,000 of these into real jobs by the end of the year. No more showing off actual work. That's not a hypothetical, that's China right now. In mid-2026, the government legally mandated that state-owned companies deploy 10,000 humanoid robots and over 100 real-world applications by year's end, with local officials required to file progress reports on a government timeline, and provinces that miss the target answer directly to Beijing for it. This is already happening too. Roboterra has robots working inside more than 10 logistics centers for China Post, some hitting 85% of human work speed, and another company live streamed its humanoid robots doing actual assembly line work at a tablet factory in April 2026. A single Guangdong facility can now pump out 10,000 humanoid robots a year on its own, and Chinese companies made up more than 97% of every humanoid robot shipped globally in the first half of 2026, with domestic buyers snapping up over 85% of that demand themselves. Morgan Stanley thinks this could become a $5 trillion industry with 1 billion robots in use by 2050, though even they admit real mass adoption is still a decade out. If that number just made your stomach drop a little, drop a comment with your job title, because we're about to look at a country betting even bigger, just in a totally different direction. The UAE isn't really trying to survive AI, it's trying to own it outright. Back in 2017, it became the first country on Earth to appoint an actual Minister of Artificial Intelligence, and it's been building toward a 2031 national AI strategy ever since, folding the technology into healthcare, education, and transportation, not just industry. The centerpiece is Stargate UAE, a 1 gigawatt AI facility in Abu Dhabi, backed by up to $10 billion from OpenAI, Oracle, Nvidia, and SoftBank, sitting inside a campus OpenAI says could serve half the world's population within 2,000 miles. Total investment isn't even fully public. Analysts estimate it lands somewhere between tens and low hundreds of billions of dollars, including a roughly $100 billion investment fund backed by the country's own sovereign wealth money. Here's the detail that still sounds like science fiction. In 2025, Dubai's leadership announced an office that uses AI to draft and update the country's own laws in close to real time. Officials claim it could cut legislative drafting time by 70%. That's a government using AI to write the rules for AI. Abu Dhabi separately committed roughly $3.5 billion just to become the world's first fully AI native government by 2027. Worth noting though, a 2026 Watchdog Index ranked the UAE low for algorithmic transparency, so the ambition and the oversight aren't exactly moving at the same speed. South Korea is where the doom story this video keeps threatening actually gets tested against reality, because Korea has been living it longer than anyone. It has the highest robot density on the planet, somewhere between 1,012 and 1,102 robots for every 10,000 manufacturing workers, more than 6 times the global average, meaning roughly 1 robot for every 10 people on a production line. In the automotive sector alone, that number jumps to nearly 2,867 robots per 10,000 workers, a figure that would sound made up if it wasn't independently tracked every year. And this isn't new. Korea has held this lead for years, growing 5 to 6% annually since 2018. So if a decade of the most extreme automation on Earth were going to cause mass unemployment, you'd expect to already see it clearly here by now. Instead, the government just committed another $2.24 billion through 2030 to push automation even further into healthcare and logistics, and it's trying to raise the domestic manufacturing rate of core robot parts from 44 to 80% by that same year. Samsung, SK Hynix, and LG alone account for 64% of all the country's robot installations, tied directly to Korea's dominance in semiconductors and displays. Hyundai even bought Boston Dynamics outright folding cutting-edge robotics straight into its car manufacturing. So this is a country that had a decade-long head start on everyone else in this video and chose to keep going instead of pulling back. The US is the section everyone watching probably already has a personal stake in, so let's get specific instead of scary. AI attributed layoffs hit 205,000 American workers by August 2026, matching all of 2025's total in under 8 months, concentrated in customer service, entry-level coding, and finance back-office jobs. The firm that has tracked layoffs since 1989 reported AI as the single leading stated reason for job cuts in both March and April 2026, the first time a technology factor has ever topped its monthly rankings ahead of the economy or restructuring itself. Microsoft says 30% of its code is now AI written, and over 40% of its layoffs last year specifically targeted software engineers. Amazon's CEO has said outright the company expects its corporate workforce to shrink as it rolls out more AI agents. And Block, the company behind Cash App and Tidal, cut 40% of its staff while leaning further into AI tools. But here's the twist that keeps this from being one-sided. OpenAI's own CEO has publicly said some of this is what he calls AI washing, companies blaming layoffs on AI that they honestly would have made anyway for other business reasons. And IBM actually tripled its entry-level hiring this year, saying AI still needs a human touch for a lot of the work. So the honest answer here isn't one clean story. It's real disruption tangled up with some genuine corporate excuse making, and nobody has fully sorted out which is which yet. India might be the most complicated story in this entire video because it's getting hit and building the thing, hitting it at the same time. Its $283 billion outsourcing industry was built entirely on cheap, codified tech labor, exactly what AI is best at replacing, organizing huge pools of English-speaking graduates to do work Western companies used to pay far more for domestically. Tata Consultancy Services cut its largest workforce ever in 2025, somewhere between 12,000 and 23,000 jobs depending on how you count it, the biggest cut since the 2008 financial crisis, and Cognizant separately set aside up to $270 million just for severance as part of its own AI-driven restructuring. The math explains why median engineering pay in India sits around $22,000 a year, while an AI coding subscription costs a few $100, and a Stanford and Carnegie Mellon study found AI agents finishing certain coding tasks 88% faster than humans. The World Bank itself found job listings in AI-exposed roles dropped roughly 20% right after ChatGPT launched. But in that same country, AI-specific job postings actually rose 16% this year, even as regular IT hiring dropped 3%. And one industry study projects 3 million new Indian tech jobs by 2030, alongside 10 million roles getting redefined rather than erased outright. India's not just a victim of this story, it's also quietly becoming one of the places building the replacement. Japan expected robots to save its care industry, and the actual result complicates that completely. The country is short almost 570,000 care workers, with over 4 applicants worth of job openings for every single person looking, the worst ratio of any occupation in the country. So Japan poured serious money into projects like AIREC, a humanoid caregiver robot out of Waseda University, funded through a long-term government program, betting robotics could fill the gap by 2030 and beyond. Except by 2026, multiple researchers found real AI penetration in actual care work sitting around just 3%, nowhere close to what a decade of robotics funding promised. The government's quiet pivot wasn't robots doing hands-on care. It became AI helping the remaining human workers with scheduling and predicting health crises instead, tools that assist rather than replace. Foreign workers hit a record 2.3 million in Japan too, but they still make up under 3% of the care workforce specifically, meaning neither robots nor imported labor have actually closed the gap. One prefecture is projected to lose 42% of its population by 2050, with half its remaining residents over 65. A scale of collapse researchers say existing solutions can't realistically keep up with. Some jobs, the ones needing actual human judgment and touch, are turning out to resist automation a lot longer than anyone originally pitched. Germany decided automation doesn't just get announced, it gets negotiated. Under a law dating back to 1976, elected worker councils get a legally enforceable say whenever a company introduces new technology capable of monitoring employees, and modern AI tools count under that same rule. Around 37% of private sector workers are covered by one of these councils, and that number climbs fast at bigger companies, meaning the biggest AI rollouts are also the ones most likely to require a real negotiation first, not just a memo from management. In 2024, a German court issued the country's first ruling specifically on worker council rights over generative AI, real legal precedent already shaping how companies deploy this stuff nationwide. Volkswagen is the textbook case. Its worker representatives sit right on the supervisory board with actual influence over layoffs and major technology decisions, not just an advisory role that gets ignored. There's tension too, though. Unions are currently fighting a proposed EU rule that would let companies incorporate online in 48 hours with zero capital, worried it could let firms legally sidestep these worker protections altogether. And reporting has flagged aggressive management pushback against works councils at companies like Tesla's German operations. Germany proves automation and worker power aren't automatically opposites. They just require actual negotiation instead of a memo. Denmark might be the closest thing this video has to an actual answer, because instead of trying to stop disruption, they built a system designed to survive it. It's called flexicurity. Employers can hire and fire pretty freely, but laid off workers get up to 2 years of real income support, plus the government's own aggressive retraining programs. Denmark spends more on active labor retraining than any other developed country on earth, reportedly close to 10 times what the US spends as a share of the economy. When a factory closes, the state doesn't just cut a check. It offers free courses in IT, green energy, or healthcare to get people moving again fast, treating an unemployed worker like someone who needs a skills update, not someone to just subsidize indefinitely. It's built on a simple deal too. Workers get a real right to support, but also a duty to actually retrain and move. And because firing someone isn't the legal minefield it is in a lot of Europe, employers here are apparently far more willing to take a chance on young or unproven talent in the first place. That deal is exactly why Nordic unions have historically welcomed automation instead of fighting it. That's the psychological trick nobody else in this video has quite pulled off yet. It's not perfect either. One of Denmark's biggest union leaders has publicly said the system is drifting toward all flex and barely any security lately, and running it all requires a top income tax rate sitting around 50%, which is a hard sell to copy anywhere else. Every single country in this video is placing a different bet on the exact same disruption, and next time we're looking at the UK, Singapore, and a country in Africa that's quietly becoming one of the biggest AI labor hubs on the entire planet.